Well, that transfer portal is closed for now, but Zachariah Branch is still looking for a new home. He entered the portal there back on December 17th and still one of those top players available. Ranked 4th overall in 24/7 Sports transfer portal rankings. Coming off a sophomore season over on the West Coast where he caught 47 passes for 503 yards and 1 touchdown. But as I mentioned, he's not alone. Others still looking for a new place in 2025, including maybe one of those top DBs, and Zachariah Davis provides that next program with a 6'4" corner that can cover out there. Number 1 when it comes to his position. Even Justice Haynes, the running back out of Alabama, transferring at number 26 overall, but reports say maybe Michigan when it comes to him in the future. Speaking of that future, Chris Hummer and Matt Zenitz here, checking in with more on this. And it's a question mark when it comes to Branch here, Chris. I wanted to start with you. What are you hearing about maybe the slow calling for his next stop, or what's his possible movement?
Well, yeah, Zachariah, as Matt's already reported, has visited Georgia and Arizona State so far. Obviously, coming out of Christmas break, there's no commitment, and we've seen a lot of these guys jump off the board, so it seems to indicate more visits are possible. Zachariah is somebody who went in the portal with a no contact tag, which usually indicates a player knows exactly where they're going to go entering the portal. I think there was a lot of buzz industry-wide about Georgia. That visit went pretty well based on my understanding, but it seems like Zachariah and his brother Zion, another figure in this recruitment, they both want to go together, could end up taking more visits.
Yeah, just to piggyback off Chris with that, the original sense on my end was that this was a two-team race essentially between Georgia and Arizona State, and what's become clear during the course of the past few days is that there are other schools that could end up being considerations as well, including North Carolina with Bill Belichick, Texas, Tennessee, some schools along those lines, and it does seem like there's an openness on the part of the Branch brothers to potentially take more visits before making a final decision, and that this is not just necessarily a Georgia-Arizona State competition at this point.
So a package deal, maybe, as you mentioned there, with his brother Zion and the Branch brothers. That'd be nice to have 2 branches out there to throw to if you're a quarterback next year. Outside of that, Justice Haynes, another target who has also been hovering since leaving Alabama here. Matt, what are you hearing about his possible landing spots?
It's pretty much a formality that he's going to end up at Michigan. So it's reached a point where Justice has already indicated to Michigan's competition that they're out, and essentially that he's going to end up at Michigan, and just at this point, a matter of getting things finalized over the finish line even more. But like I said, it's pretty much a formality at this point that he will be in Ann Arbor and a part of running back room for Sharon Moore and crew for the Wolverines next season, which is a great addition for them.
Yeah, and it was schools like Ole Miss and South Carolina in the mix for Justice Haynes as well. And I think they all know that he is Michigan bound at this point, and Michigan needs a spark at running back. They obviously lost their starter in the NFL draft recently. They didn't get exactly what they were hoping for out of Donovan Edwards this year. They spent big at quarterback to get Bryce Underwood in as a true freshman, and you need a potential base around him as he competes with Mikey Keene for that starting job to make both of those quarterbacks as successful as possible. And the best way to do that is a strong run game, and Justice Haynes, by most people's measures, is the top running back in the portal. So he's a potential difference maker for Michigan once that becomes official.
A lot of wait and see for a lot of guys here. And Chris, I want to throw it back to you because we're still learning this transfer portal, and when it's open, it's closed. It's almost like hopscotch. You pick a day and maybe it's open or it's not. But why are players still able to sit up here and move around even though it's closed?
Closed doesn't really mean closed when it comes to college football and the transfer portal. We're in bowl season right now, and there's a stipulation that if your team plays in postseason play, you get an additional 5 days after that bowl game comes to an end to enter the portal. So while the portal technically closed 2 days ago, you're still going to see a lot of names trickle in over the next couple weeks. I mean, the national championship game is January 20th, I believe, which means you could see players enter the portal all the way.
Matt, I'll let you pick up there on that question.
I guess it froze up. Yeah, you're still going to see a decent amount of activity during the course of the next couple of weeks. So technically, the portal's closed, and players had until the end of the day Saturday to submit their name into the portal. But at the same time, First of all, schools have 48 business hours to process entries, so you'll still see undergrads be submitted into the portal during the course of the next couple of days. And then to go along with that, you have the 5-day window for teams playing right now. After that, for players to still make their decisions on entering, and then also have the grad transfer component that, based on my understanding, grad transfers can still go in whenever, all the way through the end of the spring window. So there's still going to be more going on, even if you have the window technically closed. And one thing to add on to that is that there are, just like I know is the case on Chris's end also, players coming up that will, I don't want to necessarily say surprise people, but definitely be coveted players if when they end up pulling the trigger to end up going into the portal that are coming up on both of our ends right now as possibilities.
Chris, I want to bring you back in here to finish your point here. I know you were in the middle of it.
Matt covered most of it. I did want to add there's another stipulation that could see players enter the portal, and it's coaching changes. I think everybody remembers Nick Saban retired from Alabama around January 10th of last year, and that tipped over a whole nother domino movement in the portal, because as soon as a head coaching change happens, players on that roster have an additional 30 days to enter the portal. So if we see late coaching movement for whatever reason, be it a retirement, be it a coach goes to the NFL, you could open up in a whole nother window of movement that takes us well into January and maybe even to February like we saw last year.
As we get closer, of course, to the rest of the playoff field and maybe some of those teams that could be eliminated, you guys already hinted that we will see some more movement. But in terms of those teams that are in the postseason hunt, if they are eliminated, could we see more movement from some of them in the future?
Yeah, there's definitely more action coming up in the near future. Can say that very confidently.
Chris?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, these teams play on Tuesday and Wednesday next week, and I fully expect players in the portal on Thursday and Friday from the losing teams on these teams that lose in the college football playoff. It's definitely going to happen.
Matt, is there a certain team we should be keeping an eye on the closer we get to some of these games?
I don't know if we want to necessarily say that, but I think you'll see from each team remaining at this point, at least some players go in from each of those teams where the player is currently holding off on making final decisions or officially going in until the season is over. I believe the best way to sum that up right now.
Chris, is there a Caleb Downs or Judkins out there that some teams might be looking at? As you mentioned, some of these game changers or program changers out there that teams might be hovering around?
Yeah, I think there's some big name players who could enter the portal. I don't personally think we're going to see a Caleb Downs enter the portal this cycle. Maybe I'm wrong and maybe Matt's hearing differently, but it's been in terms of high-end players, not necessarily the best group, but there are definitely going to be some starting level players that enter the portal that could surprise some people here over the next couple of weeks.
We will see how it pans out, of course. Of course, we have more postseason, but you know what? The transfer portal is open. It's not really closed. Appreciate it as always, Chris and Matt, putting that out there for us. Of course, eyes to look at, wall-to-wall coverage per usual when it comes to 24/7 sports. The guys keep you intact on that, recruiting ranks, and of course, that portal, it's not closed, even though it kind of is.